Howdy, y'all.
Well, much as I don't like the thought, can't very well do a day 2 on the 162nd anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg without making at least one stop at the Wheatfield. So I'm kind of at the south end of the Wheatfield. The Wheatfield is kind of split in two, mostly due to the Park Road right in front of my car. What's now known as Wheatfield Road kind of splits this battlefield area in half. Here's the stone wall. It is covered in lichen. So one might surmise that this very well could be an original rock wall. A rock wall that the 17th Maine was very glad to have. So they probably would have been on the opposite side of it here, facing this way. And just to reiterate, guys, I'm not a battlefield expert or guide, let alone an expert on the Wheatfield. As you guys know, I can tell you quite a bit about, you know, Devil's Den and Culp's Hill and Little Round Top and so on and so forth, and certainly Day 1 and so on and so forth. But the Wheatfield is just, as I've said, one big mess. But I'm learning more as I go. So this is interesting. This is to Charles Merrill. And I love these monuments with men with depicting men with rifles, you know, behind rocks or breastworks or what have you. And one thing I can tell you about the Wheatfield is it had a very significant regiment from Maine involved here in the seesaw battle, the whirling whirlpool of death, the vortex of terror that is the Wheatfield. I'm just gonna kind of mill about here. This is to the 115th Pennsylvania. Of course, Pennsylvania and New York had troops in just about every part of this battle because they were so heavily represented. I'm just gonna kind of saunter up and down the short roadway here just to give you guys a look. But so as you've hopefully seen by now, I've already been to the Devil's Den and I've already been to the Peach Orchard. And you know, day 2 was just like I said in the last video, all of day 2 was almost something of a melee, because most of the significant battles happened in the same general area. Okay, the same general area. So again, I'm looking across the Wheatfield Road. There is more fighting in the Wheatfield. Actually, Wheatfield is across the road here. This is the wood line, or the southern part of the Wheatfield here. You can't quite see any of this from here, but if we look beyond this tree line, you would be at the Peach Orchard. And if you looked past this tree line kind of in this direction, you would be at Little Round Top, Devil's Den and such. So all of these battles within the larger Battle of Gettysburg are only separated by, you know, a quarter of a mile, third of a mile or so. All values are approximate. As I noted before, Kershaw was from the Confederacy, was largely involved in the Peach Orchard, and again, Hood was to the south, more along the lines of between Devil's Den and Little Round Top. Barksdale was involved in the Peach Orchard, but not so much the Wheatfield. So when it comes to the Wheatfield, it was largely largely Kershaw, also Semmes was involved, both being under the general custody of Lafayette McLaws, and they were scoring off against, of course, against the Union. You had Zook, Kelly, and Brooke pretty much at the forefront, commanding the divisions. But like I said, I think it's kind of significant that Maine was quite well represented here, because they were kind of at the center of the action. Now we're coming up to a monument for Maine. Oh, car coming. And so we have a monument here to, this will get a little confusing, as is everything to me with the Wheatfield, but we have a as I've shown, I'll get on the other side, but I was hoping you could read some of this. This is to, again, Chaz or Charles Merrill. There was also a Charles Verrill here who took a little walk just past this position, kind of that way, and was actually able to see the signal corps up on Little Round Top waving their flags frantically. And as soon as he saw that, he knew there was trouble. Right after that, they were called up north just a little bit. But this monument, so here's another side. It's a little better with the sunlight. You can see 17th Maine Infantry, 3rd Brigade, 1st Division, 3rd Corps. So they were part of Sickles's corps, although this would be the left or the southern end of Sickles's corps, as opposed to kind of the center, which would have been up by the peach orchard. But I think Maine deserves a special mention here because, oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention somebody kind of important to this part of the battle. So we also had commanding these guys, Merrill and Verrill, we had Philippe Regis de Trobriand. And if you think that name is a mess, there's another part of the name that I can't remember, but he has like 5 or 6 parts to his name. But again, they were representing the 17th Maine, who did a very, very admirable job in holding this position for about an hour or so, which in the thick of battle, and a really bad battle, is quite a long time, especially when enemy forces are kind of converging on you from different sides, and you're a bit outnumbered. But again, they used this rock wall well to this advantage and held off the rebel onslaught for about an hour or so. But I just kind of think that it's neat that Maine also gets a special showing here in the Wheatfield, because as most of you guys know, there's also the 20th Maine over on Little Round Top, which gets a lot of attention. But then you also have the 16th Maine, who was a big part of day one, covering the retreat, headed by Charles Tilden. And I just kind of think it's cool that, you know, such a well, maybe not in terms of size, but, you know, a state with such a small showing showed up so well during the Battle of Gettysburg, and were very well represented by Philippe Regis de Trobriand. Sorry, my French isn't very good. And Charles Tilden and Joshua Chamberlain. Also like to mention that a lot of these guys from Maine were let me think about this. I can't remember about Tilden. Chamberlain and the Trobriand were definitely not West Pointers, didn't have strong military backgrounds. A lot of these guys came out of Bedouin College in Maine, and the Trobriand was actually a lawyer and a poet. So again, you can't always judge a book by its cover, just because he had that and a bit of an aristocrat, but just because he had that background doesn't mean that he didn't perform dutifully, because he very much did so. I'm just about out of time. One last fun thing to note about the Trobriand was he eventually actually was given command of an entire brigade later in the war in '64. This happened when somebody who he had been fighting with a lot was finally relieved of their duty because of drunkenness. And that was John Henry Hobart Ward. I think I got his name right. Ward was eventually relieved from command due to his love of alcohol. And so when that happened, the Trobriand finally got his big moment in 1864. Anyhow, guys, we'll see you on the next one.